What's up, guys? Welcome back to another review here on the Movie Buffer. So I'm really pumped for today's episode, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at Death Wish 3. And this is our very first Canon Films production that will be featuring on the channel. Quick disclaimer for those that are unaware, Canon Films is known for producing and releasing various low-budget action movies throughout the 80s and 90s, including Invasion USA starring Chuck Norris, as well as the Death Wish series and many others. Now, some of you may be wondering, why start with the third entry of the series instead of just going to the first one and doing them in chronological order? Well, the main reason for that is that while they are a little over the top in certain aspects, the first two Death Wish films are actually pretty grounded in reality. This third movie, though, just goes absolutely balls to the wall with its craziness, being extremely over the top, although in a very fun way, similar to Commando or the various other 80s action movies that would come out. So with cheesy one-liners, blood squibs, practical explosions, and a lot of over-the-top stunts are your bread and butter like they are mine, this will be the perfect film for you. But before we dive into the review, let's first make sure to check out that Patreon. I'm going to post a link in the description below. There you guys will find early access and all sorts of exclusive content. Also, don't forget to follow our social media. We have a Facebook page now. I'll post a link of that in the description below as well. And don't forget to like, comment, let me know what kind of films you guys want to see me cover on this channel. I always love engaging with my audience members, and it's really the only way for me to actually make any sort of changes or improvements here that may benefit you guys watching. So make sure to do all that. Don't forget to subscribe also so that you don't miss any more exciting videos on this channel. And without further ado, let's dive into Death Wish 3. The original Death Wish came out in 1974 and starred Charles Bronson. It did share some commonalities with the Dirty Harry series, which came out around the same time period, but differed quite a bit with its main protagonist being an architect turned vigilante versus being a cop. Not only would it star Charles Bronson as the lead character, but the movie is also known for featuring Jeff Goldblum in one of his earliest film roles as Freak Number 1. The basic storyline is a revenge story about an architect who goes on a killing spree after his family is attacked by a bunch of robbers, with his wife being left dead and his daughter assaulted and left traumatized. It was a moderately successful movie despite its similarities to the Dirty Harry franchise once again, and made enough money to warrant a sequel. Death Wish 2, while not quite as successful as its predecessor, still made a decent amount at the box office, and thus Death Wish 3 was born. Side note, the first Death Wish would receive a remake in 2018 starring Bruce Willis, though I have yet to check out that movie or really even read up on any of the plot details. Now, a quick little disclaimer. While this movie is a lot more light on the rapey stuff and a lot of the bizarre and uncomfortable sexual elements that made up the bulk of the first two movies, there is still some of those elements that are featured in this film as well. So if you're somebody who's sensitive to that type of stuff, you may want to skip over this video. Honestly, I'm going to touch on it very, very briefly and then be done with it, because as much as I do enjoy those first two Death Wish movies, I'm not going to lie, those elements do make me a little uncomfortable as well. Now, keep in mind, though, that this was in the 70s, and let's just say those types of subjects were featured quite heavily in a lot of movies back then. Anywhere from Dirty Harry to Mad Max to these films. Literally every movie in the 70s, it seemed like, at least every violent action film, had to have at least one or two of those scenes where a character is sexually assaulted, oftentimes very violently, but I guess we can just chalk it down to being a product of its time. Thankfully, as I previously stated, Death Wish 3 is a lot lighter on those elements, making for a much more pleasurable viewing experience. And the best part is, we still get to see Charles Bronson go on a killing spree. How many bodies will he bag up this time? Well, let's take a look and dive into Death Wish 3. Right off the bat, the film lets us know we're in for nothing but a quality film production with the old Canon Pictures logo. The soundtrack immediately lets us know it's time to get funky. Although even with a funky soundtrack on board, our lead here still looks bored to tears. And that's not without reason, because after all, Charles Bronson openly admitted on an interview that he did not have the greatest time with making this film. And honestly, it kinda shows. But it's alright, Charles. The director of this movie is a real winner, I've heard. And nice try, movie. I know product placement when I see it. Besides, everyone knows that Big League beats Big Red any day of the week. Here we see Bronson's character Paul Kersey on his way back to the Big Apple. Not sure why he's on a Greyhound bus, or I'm sorry, a Big Red bus though, because it's seen both in the previous two movies as well as later on in this movie that he has his own vehicle and is able to drive. I would assume he also possesses a driver's license as well, so not really sure why he's seen taking a bus. And I think these punks are a little late to the meeting because it looks like somebody's already fucked up this neighborhood pretty bad. So the punks start causing chaos and destroying everything, and then this old coot comes out to give them a stern talking to. Or I guess a good stabbing to. Of course, this turns out to be a huge mistake as the punks are already one step ahead. And I guess stabbing someone's couch repeatedly can really tire you out. And yes, that is Alex Winter, who you may recognize from The Lost Boys, as well as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Apparently, this old man who gets the crap beaten out of him, as well as stabbed repeatedly, is a friend of Charles Bronson's who he was on the way to see when we saw him on the bus. Unfortunately, he arrives at the scene of the crime a little too late, as his friend basically bleeds out on the spot. Well, I mean, what the fuck do you expect? This is what happens when you're friends with this man. I mean, look at what happened to his family in the first two movies. And who should show up after but the cops? Like, about damn time, guys. Literally everybody in this whole apartment complex heard the scene go down. They immediately assume that Charles Bronson was the killer, of course, and attempt to take him into custody, which does not go very smooth. Apparently, these cops went to the same training academy as the ones from First Blood because they immediately start pistol whipping the shit out of him before even questioning him.
I know you. Kersey. It's Paul Kersey.
Careful now. This is a very dangerous man you're dealing with.
You always violate people's constitutional rights? This is my jail, Kersey. And I'm the law. That means I get to violate your constitutional rights.
Well, that's one way to prove it, I guess. And apparently this horse on the wall is wanted for murder. And now it's time to see who can overact the most.
Looking for trouble, man?
But it's alright, I'm sure he'll be settled in and making friends in no time. Well, at least he's got one fan in here. Not sure what the hell that was all about, but I'm sure we'll find out in due time. This Gary Busey clone is named Fraker. He's actually the leader of the gang we saw at the beginning of the film. Anywho, the two get into a brief scuffle along with a bunch of other inmates, and I think they kind of fucked up your mohawk there a little.
I got a lawyer, but I gotta tell you, if they hadn't have broken us up, I would have killed you.
And apparently the cops in this prison are deaf as well, like what the fuck? Anyway, Falker swears revenge on Kersey, and then the police show back up to escort them away. Also, I see that the horse that is wanted for murder is still missing in action apparently. But hey, at least things are starting to look up now for Mr. Kersey because Joe Camber here is apparently a huge fan of his. He even agrees to endorse him as a vigilante and release him.
Have an arrest. You see, Kersey, I admire you. I'm a real fan. You want out of here? You got it. I'll minimize the vigilante stuff with the press. Tell them it's creeps killing creeps. Nobody cares anyway. It'll be just like before, Mr. Vigilante.
Also, apparently this sends Kersey into some sort of trance, I guess? Oh well. You got about 10 seconds before he goes full-on Rambo in this police station, so you better go ahead and release him. And now it's time for Charles Bronson to get laid. Meet his love interest for the film. But honestly, in my opinion, she should know better. Has she not seen the previous 2 Death Wish movies? Literally everybody that has fallen for this guy has ended up dying in some horrific fashion. Now it's time for Kersey, with the police department's support, to go on a killing spree. It takes Charles Bronson about 30 seconds to come across a couple of, quote, creeps, as they are referred to in this movie. Seriously, we could do a count if you guys want to. Take a shot every time someone says the word creep in this movie. Actually, on second thought, don't, because I guarantee you'll probably die of alcohol poisoning by the time this video is over. But really, this is just an excuse for Charles Bronson to go on a killing spree without any legal consequences. He encounters this random woman in her car who's about to get mugged, and like, what the hell are you even doing out here in the middle of the night in a dangerous part of town that you know is ridden with crime? Like, you're just hanging out in your car casually. I'm not really sure what you expect to happen. And apparently she really hates the Lost Boys. And so does Charles Bronson, because he approaches the creep and proceeds to slap the shit out of him. Next, not Ernest Borgnine here comes face to face with our hero. And the two have a little exchange where we learn that they were both mutual friends of Charlie, the old guy that we saw murdered at the beginning of the film.
Who killed Charlie? The creeps on the street.
Also, is it daytime or nighttime here? Because I don't know what the heck's going on with the light here. Well, Charlie's not going to need his apartment anymore, you know, being dead and everything. So Kersey decides to move in. And will you guys keep that ruckus down? I'm trying to look cool here. Those goddamn creeps. After renting a safety deposit box from a young Saddam Hussein, he then goes and buys a used car as well.
How are you gonna pay for it?
Cash.
Okay, I'm not sure why the soundtrack just suddenly got all ominous and stuff. I guess in this society, people are for some reason terrified of paper money.
He was admiring your dinner.
Stuffed cabbage.
Smells wonderful. Would you like to join us? Sure. Can I have a few minutes to clean up?
Oh, certainly.
Well, Kersey, it's good to know where your priorities are. Hell, this man seems way more excited about eating stuffed cabbage than he did caring about his friend's death.
My sister said know him. I married him in 1931.
Excuse me, please.
Excuse me while I go cap these bitches.
Hey. What's the problem?
What?
With the car. What's the problem?
Just get out of my fucking face. Who are you?
We're still in the fucking car. What's it to you?
It's my car.
How you gonna die?
Okay. I'm honestly 100% convinced at this point that he bought that car and parked it in a shitty part of town, knowing good and well that someone was going to try to break into it, just so he would have an excuse to kill somebody. And yeah, I think you're a little late, cops. Meanwhile, in another part of town, we see a couple of neighbors from the apartment complex getting harassed by a reject from Gotham City.
Hey, lend me $5, man. Hey, I said lend me $5, sucker.
Dear God, I mean, these guys make the villains from Miami Connection look menacing.
Déjalo quieto.
Hey.
Déjalo, cabrón. No me lo toque así.
Good God, that's embarrassing. I'm telling my mommy that old man hit me. So back at his apartment, Kersey gets a surprise phone call from Fraker. Like, not sure why he has Charlie's number, but alright. And then he gets to work on Home Aloneing the shit out of his apartment. I'm not even being funny here. I honestly think Kevin McAllister would be extremely proud of this man, despite this movie being made a whole 5 years before Home Alone.
Fraker is the chief creep around here. Why don't you bust him?
Back on the streets, Kersey has a run-in with Kathy, the public relations lady we met earlier. Yeah, I know, I forgot about her also. And the two have a little exchange. Honestly, I'm not sure why she's still chasing this guy, because as you saw earlier, as well as if you've watched the previous two Death Wish movies, his love interests don't exactly have the best record of making it to the end of the film. But uh-oh, it looks like Fraker's also got eyes on her. Yeah, so the creepy death stare might actually be intimidating if it wasn't for that goofy ass hairdo. So the police show up at the old folks' home that we saw earlier and end up taking their guns away. Yeah, that's really gonna help. But hey, who needs guns when you have a literal killing machine living next door to you?
I put a nail in the window right here. Anybody opening the window raises the nail.
Well, at least we know the trap works.
What are those? Teeth.
Jesus, this place really is like Gotham City.
How's my wife? Can I see her?
Mrs. Rodriguez has expired.
Well, gee, thanks, Dr. Buzzkill. Way to be sensitive about it. Well, we haven't seen Charles Bronson murder anyone in a little while. So he decides to take his expensive camera and go for a nice stroll in the hood. And hey, might as well stop for an ice cream too while you're at it. Besides, it's not like he's prancing that nice fancy camera around in the hopes that someone will try to steal it. Oh wait, that's exactly what he's doing.
It's the creep that stole my pocketbook 3 weeks ago.
Gee, you know, all that killing got me really hot and bothered. Time to go visit my love interest.
I guess that you're afraid to be close to someone again.
I mean, yeah, you could say that. Uh-oh, did I put on the Warriors by mistake? Never mind. I guess this ridiculous close-up shot of the reverse mohawk proves that theory wrong. Also, what's stopping Kersey from just shooting this guy in the head right now? I mean, he clearly has no problem wasting all of his goons. Huh, well, ain't that a bitch. But it looks like the creeps have him surrounded. How on earth is he gonna get out of this one? Oh, okay. so I guess he's just gonna use his 65-year-old body to Spider-Man his way across the buildings. And who needs guns and knives when you can just chuck somebody off of a building? Or at least chuck a dummy off of a building.
That's a .30 caliber Browning machine gun. Charlie brought them home from the war, and they still work.
Be right back. I want to pick up my mail.
I'll be right here.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, it's not like the people that are trying to kill you might have followed you guys here. Oh wait, that's exactly what they did. Well, you can't say I didn't warn you, lady. Okay, now I'm here to tell you guys, before you get too worried, Bennett does indeed survive his fall. Now, I can't really speak for his stuntman, but I'm going to assume he's probably dead.
I only lost one gun for you there. The other one's still there, in the same place. Blow the scum away.
Don't you mean blow the creeps away? Are we watching Death Wish 3 or Mad Max? And now it's time for Charles Bronson to go full commando and reenact GTA.
Just shot some of the creeps.
Now it's time for the whole neighborhood to join in. Quick, everybody grab a gun and shoot the nearest creep you find.
Who the hell's firing, man? You told someone to fire?
Wait, what the hell are you guys celebrating about? You just got your asses handed to you by a geriatric. You see, kids, there was actually a time long ago in movie history where you could cast somebody as your protagonist and they didn't have to be no older than 30 years old and didn't have to look like a model as well. Please explode, please explode, please explode. Yes!
We're out of ammo.
Air Unit 6 to base. Be advised, around Southern Belmont in a 15-block area, I've sighted several buildings burning. Be advised, we have shots fired in the street. Looks like we have a riot on our hands. We need heavy backup unit available in the area.
Alright, here's an idea. How about instead of hooting and hollering and blowing up random shit, you guys actually blow up the guy who's currently kicking your asses? Lucky for Kersey here, these guys apparently went to the same shooting academy as the stormtroopers. Even the soundtrack seems impressed with his aim. At this point, it pretty much just turns into a free-for-all when the entire neighborhood starts joining in on the killing. Dumbass. With their numbers dwindling this fast, the creeps better step up their game soon. No, not Bill! Well, looks like the police chief has finally done something useful in this film. Also, I guess getting shot in the head apparently gives you a bloody nose. So I'll admit, I've never been shot in the chest before, but does it really make you do 10 flips? And, you know, it really does make it hard to take your villains as a serious threat when they get taken out by a flippin' broomstick. So, somehow getting shot like 8 times at close range doesn't take out Fraker, but that's okay, because Kersey's got a backup plan.
Bulletproof, asshole.
Ah, I stand corrected then. Alright, so now what? Huh. Alright, I mean, that's one way to deal with the problem, I guess. So, happy ending. Except for half of the city that's currently on fire now. So is the police department planning on reimbursing all of the homeowners as well as the local business owners whose property got destroyed during this vigilante mission? Well, maybe Death Wish 4 will answer that for us. So that was Death Wish 3, and holy crap, it is just batshit insanity from start to finish. And quite frankly, if I'm being honest, it's the best type of batshit insanity. Now, of course, it'd be quite easy to pick apart a film like this, especially in regards to the over-the-top action sequences and the various stunts and flips that the actors do almost every single time they are shot. Upon researching for this review, I did find out that this film was panned pretty heavily by critics due to some of the over-the-top action sequences, comparing them more to sequences from Rambo First Blood Part 2 or even Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But honestly, I don't see this as a flaw. I mean, yes, the first two Death Wish films were much more grounded in reality, so I can see why some people that were really captivated and drawn into the stories and characters in those films may have found this one a little bit excessive. But at the end of the day, it's an 80s action film. I mean, it's cheesy one-liners, over-the-top violence, and a lot of ridiculous stunts, but at least they're all practical. We get some nice practical explosions, some blood squibs, things that you don't really see in a lot of action movies nowadays. And this isn't me trying to compare modern action movies to movies that we had back in the day. This is just something that I think deserves to be mentioned because, I mean, at the end of the day, this movie's pretty ridiculous with its premise and its execution, but it is anything but boring. And I think that's all it was really trying to do, was entertain people at the end of the day. Now, you guys probably know by now that I don't really do ratings. I don't have a 10 out of 10 scale or a 5-star scale or anything like that. Because with a lot of movies that I feature on this channel, it's really hard to rate them because most of them are either really bad, but unintentionally entertaining and funny, or they're just ridiculous and over the top like this one, but still manage to be fun and entertaining as well. At the end of the day, Death Wish 3 may not have been as successful as its predecessors, but it still makes for a fun and really entertaining B-movie premise. Well guys, that's a wrap on this episode of the Movie Buffer. Don't forget to check out the rest of my channel and see what other kind of videos I've got. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you guys will enjoy on there if you have not already seen it. And stay tuned for more. We got a lot more coming up on this channel. Anyway, this has been Mark, aka the Movie Buffer. Ciao for now, guys.